I don't know a whole lot of people getting into the off-road Jeep game that are like, yeah, I don't want to go bigger tires. I definitely want. There are some people that like it, and
which
they're doing
you know,
more
which is funny because
and,
I thought that we were going to kind of change that culture, or like that was part of our plan, was to be like,
I'm here for it.
Yeah, like you don't need to run 40s anymore. You can get over the thing with 37s or 35s. But people are like, wait, you're saying I could run an even bigger tire? And we're like, wait, what? How did you? I can run a 42 on my Dana 44.
Like, that's what everybody heard. Oh.
I'm Matt from Portal Pros, and you're listening to the Trailhead Podcast.
I'm Scott from Portal Pros, and you're listening to the Trailhead Podcast.
Wake it up, let it roar, feel the ground shake. Pedal down, dust flying, no time to waste. The trailhead's calling, engine power on a roll. This is where trails start and stories unfold. On the starlit skies, where the wild things roam. Every trail a journey, every Jeep a home. Meet at the trailhead, where the wild ones run. The dust kicks high and the day's not done. With the road wide open and the dirt in our soul. This is where trails start and our stories unfold.
Welcome to the Trailhead, everybody. I am JD, and tonight we have got a relatively full panel for an interview show. On the hosting panel, it's Pope. How you doing, man?
Excellent. Excited to be here tonight. How are you?
Doing all right. We're going to see how we can do expensive stuff to your new expensive vehicle.
Awesome.
Kerry, man, how you doing?
Excellent. Surprising I'm still in town, but Gladiator's getting fixed up for the next trip, so I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw you were doing some other stuff with that today, going up on the trailer to get some more work done to it, gas tank and some other stuff.
Yep, fuel tank and skid plates.
Nice. 500 miles of range. That was impressive. Yes. All right, well, let's get right into it. Welcome to the show, Matt Myers and Scott Frey from Portal Pros. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing well. Ready to talk about some portals.
Swell.
Or clock springs, whatever you want to talk about.
I don't want anything to we talk enough about clock springs on the live show. You guys can come back and talk about the clock spring thing on the live show, because hopefully it'll be resolved by then. Oh. All right. Anyway, so yeah, I met you guys out at Trail Hero. So we've been trying to kind of get together, and just schedules and timing and events have just not made it happen yet. So I'm glad to finally get you guys in here. You guys taking any kind of a break from events for the season, or what? Because EJS is coming up around the corner, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we kind of took a break between Trail Hero and King of the Hammers. But yeah, we're going to EJS, and then summertime, I don't know. We're probably going to go to some stuff. We don't really planned all that well, so.
Yeah. That's fair enough. That sounds like the rest of us, except Kerry. I feel like Kerry plans everything out way too meticulously. So. All right.
Kerry's just doing the same thing to you that he does to his job. Makes him think he's awesome.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, guys, I wanted to get you on, obviously, to talk about portals. I'm the kind of person who, as we were talking about before we got on the air, I'm running the 2.5-inch lift, 35-inch tires, and I still have a factory warranty intact on a 2015 Jeep. And so when I was no, it's called planning. I've already saved. We're not getting into this debate again. What appealed to me about what you guys are doing is the fact that it's essentially kind of a bolt-on lift kit without, some of the things that go with a lift, like changing geometry and all those other things. So, but before we get into that real quick, let's find out about you guys. Where are you from? And how did you guys get into the off-roading scene and doing obviously Matt's got, how many Jeeps you got behind you there?
There's one behind me and two outside. So.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I call it enough for now. That's my wife says it's way too many, but like right now, this feels good.
This feels good.
My build is complete.
Yeah. We hear that a lot on the show too, is my build is complete. Everything I'm done. I'm not changing. I'm not making any more changes to it. Pope, I'm not buying any more vehicles. We're good now. I hear it all.
Yep.
Awesome, man. So where are you at? Where did you guys get started? Where did you get started?
So we're currently in San Jose, California. So we do all the Northern California stuff. I'm from here, from Sacramento originally, and started wheeling, off-roading before I could really walk and talk too much. Just thrown into a car seat and in the back of a CJ5 and then a CJ7, etc. Kind of from there, and then have been doing it my whole life, and finally bought my first vehicle right out of college, where we met, actually, where I met Scott. Both went down to Cal Poly for college, got our degrees in mechanical engineering, did the whole engineering thing, joined the Baja team while we were there, which is like a little, I don't even know what you call it, Scott. Go-kart? That's the easiest thing.
Yeah, it's a single-seater off-road go-kart thing. It's powered by a 14-horsepower Briggs & Stratton motor. But it would go 30, 35 miles an hour. It's pretty good for what it was.
Yeah. So we met building that thing in college, basically. Built our first gearbox, and that car is ground up, built by students, and 100% fabricated, in the shops that you have on campus and stuff, which was where we learned how to do all of the stuff that we're kind of doing now. So yeah, met there, and then right out of college bought an XJ, the best cheap Jeep money can buy.
I'm glad you continued that sentence, because if you had said the best anything at that point, I was going to probably question sanity at this point. But yeah, okay, cheap Jeep, totally.
Yeah, I was right out of school and I got a job and was like, "There's a little bit of money, just the tiniest bit, just enough to buy an XJ," and that's where I went. And pretty soon after that, convinced all my friends that that was the life we wanted to live, was buying Jeeps and fixing them. And
he ruined our financial futures.
I did.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, at the time they're just XJs, so I wasn't asking much, but now it's a little worse.
Yeah, it's still not a cheap hobby, man, in any way, shape, or form, no matter what you're doing.
No,
not even a little bit. Yeah.
They need to come here and start the Baja Club for us.
Yeah.
Be interesting to have one here.
Yeah.
It was a super fun time to be in the shop and building stuff and completely ignoring classroom stuff most of the time to go build things and design stuff for off-road cars instead.
Yeah, no kidding. That seems like a hell of a lot more of it. I would have stayed in school a lot longer and probably know more about mechanical.
Yeah. So from there, it's obviously spiraled from one Jeep into three. The one behind me is a 67 Commando that I've been working on for, I don't know, 4 years now. And it drives on the street, technically, barely.
Technically, he says. Okay.
Yes. It's missing many things, but it is a running and driving project, I guess.
Is it street legal?
It will be street legal. Yes. It is tagged and licensed. It is currently non-opt. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because that wasn't my question. Is it going to be street legal?
Yeah. Soonish.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
That's government's good enough with soonish most of the time.
And the last Jeep is I just picked up, kind of partially for Portal Pro stuff, but also just because I wanted one. I picked up a 22 Gladiator. So it is currently bone stock Rubicon, ready for portals and stuff. So I'm in the middle of kind of collecting and hoarding parts to start putting that thing together for this summer, hopefully. Nice.
It's also taking advantage of the deals on all the 2022 Gladiators sitting out there.
Yes.
Dude, it's a great time to buy a Gladiator.
It was good. It was an easy sell at home.
I really want one just to start. And then I could get away from the warranty. And then just have the crawler.
Yeah.
See how this goes? All right. Awesome, man. Well, what about you, Scott?
So my off-road journey, if you will, kind of started more with dirt bikes. So I was into, I think I was 16 or 17. I got my first dirt bike, got into motocross, and then I actually broke my collarbone like a week before I started at Cal Poly. So I wasn't really able to ride anymore. And then I joined the Baja SAE team as well. Actually, a year before Matt. And yeah, it was like, oh wait, I can do off-roading and like learn things related to mechanical engineering and go race that thing. Yeah, obviously I'm gonna do that.
No kidding, right?
Yeah.
Makes
So
me want to rethink my education.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, it was hard work, but it was a lot of fun. And then yeah, basically I graduated, also moved up to the Bay, and Matt got his XJ about a year before our other buddy got his XJ, and then like dominoes is like a month later I bought a ZJ. So I upgraded to the Grand Cherokee instead of the Cherokee. So I had a V8, and I had that thing up until just about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, and then I sold it to one of our other wheeling buddies, who upgraded to that from an XJ. But it originally had TJ Dana 44s, like Rubicon 44s, and then I chipped a spider gear in one of them. At some point, the hammer is getting a little too spicy, so then I decided to Super Duty axle swap it. So it had 06, Dana 60 and a Sterling 10.5. So it was pretty spicy.
Nice.
I talked my wife, even before Portal Pros, I talked my wife into getting a 2015 JKU as our like going to the mountains rig or wheel, whatever. And then it was like, yeah, boom, it's the Portal Pros rig.
We started a Portal
Tale
company.
as old as time. Yep. It's fantastic. Okay. Yeah. And I know we kind of talked about it before we got on the air, but what's your kind of wheeling style? Are you both kind of rock crawlers?
Yeah. I mean, the trails we mostly do are like the Rubicon, Fordyce, Slick Rock. So they're like, maybe level 7 or level 8 rock crawling trails, but we mostly are out there camping doing them. So we always carry our own stuff, our cooking stuff and whatever. And then, but yeah, more so on the rock crawling side.
We're trying to expand. We're trying to expand the trail list now because we were pretty confined in Northern California, and we finally took the plunge to get out to Utah, and we've gone to San Hollow for Trail Hero and have gone to Moab. Obviously, I've been down to KOH several times and trying to move our way east as much as there is wheeling to do. So we're getting there.
Colorado.
Which is hard. It's hard to do though when your local trail is the Rubicon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you are spoiled a little bit, yeah. But that happens here too. I get that. I mean, it happens here in Colorado. We think we get spoiled a little bit that a lot of the stuff is in our backyards.
For sure.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, definitely come to Colorado, and then if you want mud, just keep going east. If that's what you're really looking for, it's a lot of mud.
Hard pass.
And that's where I'm at.
Colorado, yes. Yeah. Mud, no.
Yeah.
And we don't do mud here. People think we have it. We don't. It's like snow. We don't have it unless you get into the mountains.
Yeah.
So. All right. So how did you guys then make that transition from doing just kind of off-roading stuff and then move into essentially starting Portal Pros and saying, I want to take all the stuff I know and then turn that into a business of some kind?
Yeah. So it was actually pretty spontaneous. Like we had seen other, bolt-on Jeep portal axle companies out there, and we have, mechanical engineering background with we become professional manufacturing engineers in our careers. So like we have a pretty good understanding of how to make things cost effectively and like how to scale them and whatever with kind of that, design background. So we kind of have both sides of the coin there.
Nice.
And so it kind of been like sitting in our brains for a while that like, okay, this is the coolest thing that's out there and it currently costs too much. And like we have the skills to put together a product that could, be very competitive from a cost standpoint and still kind of meet the same requirements as the other guys. And so that had been stewing certainly, I think, more in my brain than Matt's brain.
Like even for 4 or 5 years before this, we always kind of knew we were going to do something. We were going to make some product somewhere, start a company. Like we kind of had that in the brain. And then as portals kind of came onto the scene and we saw them in action and we were like, hey, this is legit. Like if I'm going to build another Jeep, this seems like the thing to do. And then, you realize how expensive it is. And okay, yeah. Then we started to put together. I'll let Scott keep going.
So you did the, we can do it better and cheaper than anyone else.
Yeah, which I guess is kind of a classic thing to do, but
yeah, I mean,
let's hope we're right.
It still requires some vision, guys. Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I was visiting a contract manufacturer for work, and they're just completely unrelated to gears or anything like this. And I just happened to see some random gearbox sitting on some engineer's table, and then like a knuckle or an upright or something from, I don't know. I don't even know what it was from. And I just kind of was like, those two go together to make portals. Guys, do you think you can make portal axles? And they were like, I showed, like, hey, here's what that is, and they're like, oh yeah, no problem. Send us a drawing. We'll get it made for you. No problem. And I texted Matt that day and I was like, hey man, want to start a portal axle company? And he just goes, yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Let's do that. Sure. Okay.
That was in July, I think, of 2023. So like, yeah, a year and a half ago. And then, after like 4 or 5 months, we put together a design that we thought was like kind of a hack together, just like starting point. And basically we just wanted to get it quoted to see would that even be remotely possible to make money and have a business off of. And we got
to
the
make it
initial
cost
quotes.
effective. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Because if it came back and it was like, oh, $50,000, like, yeah, obviously that doesn't make any sense if we're trying to sell them for in the, teens.
Right.
And it came back in the right realm and we were like, okay, let's start a company. So that was like December of 2023.
Like, yeah, we're going to do this. Sure.
We're going to do this. Yeah. So we literally went from like December 2023, we had, got those quotes. And then in January, a month later, we started an LLC. And yeah, that was 13 months ago now, 14 months ago. Yeah. And then since then, we've just been trying to figure out what it is to build a company.
Yeah.
Like what it is to build a company. Yeah.
Well, and what it is to build a portal. I mean, you guys have put a lot of engineering, research and development and testing into the product at this point.
Totally. The thing, I guess the reason I was bringing up or saying specifically the business side is we both designed and built things and also launched products. So like, I think that's probably the part where we're most comfortable. The part that we don't really understand is sales and marketing and, doing things like this, like talking to you guys, like that's the part that is definitely not in our like normal realm of, I don't know, work that we do. So that part has been interesting, but then, obviously like, oh, hey, yeah, let's put these things on. Do they drive? Like the first time we put them on the vehicle, it was sitting on the JK, it was sitting on jack stands in my garage. And we were like, okay, turn it on. Let's hope they spin. And we're all like standing around and like, okay, put it in 4-wheel drive. And then they all spun and we were like, oh my God, we did it.
Yeah.
It's like that's like early garage story there, guys. So remember that in 10, 20 years when these guys are the top company, right?
There it is, man.
Yeah, and there's a
It's like
bottle
Wozniak
of
right here.
there's a bottle of Kirkland sparkling wine that has a label on it from the day we first drove, which was August 24th. So we had a little bit of bubbly when we were done.
There you go. Like at some point, you got to celebrate the fact that it's no small feat of engineering that two guys in the garage put together a portal axle and made it spin without it blowing up the moment you tried the first time. Because if you had said that to me, like, the first time it spun around, it grenaded and we had to start over from scratch, I would not have been surprised. But it's impressive.
Not say that.
I mean, that is a valid statement, Kerry.
It's
we're still running those gears today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Testament. That's pretty amazing, actually. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, anytime you kind of get to that phase and you've built something from scratch and it works, I don't know, no matter how confident you are in your design and your abilities and stuff, it's always just like, oh man, it actually works. You just have that
no kidding.
exciting moment, you know?
I would say for the people who are watching who don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
That was going to be next. Yep. Yeah. You guys want to break it down for us exactly what portals are, what they're going to do for people?
Yeah. So what is a portal axle? It's basically, and honestly, I think going to our website is really helpful. We've got a couple of diagrams that really show like the benefits. So I'm going to plug that there, portalprosoffroad.com.
Yep.
But
we'll link to that. We got you.
Perfect. So what is a portal axle? It's basically a gearbox that replaces your wheel hub, and so it gives you a secondary output. Oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah,
it's literally the exact words. There it is. I'm right on message.
Prepared.
Yeah. So
Verbatim.
Yeah, exactly. I've been practicing this pitch for a while. So basically, like your wheel would normally be directly in line with your axle shaft or your differential. Right. And so with a portal axle, it basically bolts on and has an input gear where your output, your stub shaft or your axle shaft would bolt to, or normally the wheel hub would be. And then there's a set of gears, in our case 4 gears, that basically portals down to a secondary output. So it pushes the output shaft and your wheel 4 inches down from where it normally would be. And that just basically gives you a lift, but not in a traditional way that a suspension lift does, where a suspension lift will give you extra height between basically the chassis and the drivetrain. So like with a solid axle, you're literally keeping your axle in the same spot and lifting everything else up. But with a portal axle, you actually lift everything. So effectively your wheels are moving down instead of like lifting the chassis up. So you gain that additional ground clearance, not just on the body, on the chassis, but also underneath your axle or underneath like your skid plates if you have an IFS rig. So that's the biggest part. And then there's like 10 secondary effects of that, which is number 2 being that you get a gear reduction. So in our case, it's a 1.25 gear reduction. And that just means you get less torque going from the wheel up through your drivetrain. It kind of like has 2 effects. One is you're actually re-gearing effectively. So instead of changing from like a 410 gear, you know, in a stock Rubicon to like a 513 if you want to run a 37 or a 40, you just put this portal on and boom, you've got 513 gears. So that's amazing. And then as a result of that, you also are taking the torque load that would normally be going up through your axle shafts and into your differential, and that's actually being handled by the portal. So you've got about 25% reduction in torque going to your axle shafts, and thus your U-joints, your differential, all your drivetrain, right?
Wow,
and
that's neat.
And so that enables like what we're doing with the 2015 JK we're running. It has stock front axle shafts, and we're running 40-inch tires and doing level 9 trails. So it's pretty amazing, actually.
Insane.
With 4 inches of additional ground clearance under the diff.
Right,
and you're running the stock suspension otherwise.
It's a stock springs with a 2-inch like lift, or leveling kit, and then we got some pretty nice shocks going on. So, but technically you can run. But my shocks were so blown out, it was time to go. So.
I feel that one. I feel that 100%.
Yeah.
This does a better visual for you. And if you're only listening to this, you're going to have to also watch the actual YouTube video of this. Let's see here. This does the best explanation, I thought. It puts all of that lift to the side and keeps it away from underneath you.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically for anyone who is listening, we're just looking at this diagram from our website, and basically it shows 3 different Jeeps. One is a stock Jeep going over a boulder, and then in the middle there's one with a Jeep with a suspension lift going over a boulder, and then one with portal axles. And you basically can just see that you get the additional ground clearance underneath that would enable you to go over this, random boulder that you're going over.
It's all that you get, all that 4 inches of lift. None of it's sacrificed to your suspension.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And what we're finding, like as we're wheeling this thing with portals and 40-inch tires, we've obviously been wheeling for a reasonably long amount of time. And now me trying to spot and Scott trying to wheel this thing, like it completely changes the approach you take to rock crawling, especially.
Just go.
A little bit, yeah. Most of the time you're spending like, I want to put my tires on rocks to get over the top of stuff and clear my diffs and everything. And now it's like half the time I tell Scott, like, just put it in the hole because that's where you got a little more traction and it'll just clear everything. Like, I don't even know. Do I even need to spot you? You could just, you just drive.
Well, and for a comparison, Matt, how much ground clearance do you have under your diff on your Commando?
So the Commando behind me is on 39s right now with a Super Duty Dana 60 front. And I think the ground clearance with aired up tires was like 11 3/4 inches, somewhere almost 12 inches or so.
Wow.
Yeah. And so on the JK, we've got 40s and front Dana 44, and it's got like 17 or 17 and a half inches of ground clearance.
Yeah. Because not only you get that 4 inches of lift, and it's a true lift, not like your tire size increases, but you've got rubber compression and suspension compression and everything. And so you get the lift there. But also the Dana 44 is just like another inch smaller because you don't need a 10.5-inch ring gear to run 40-inch tires when you've got a torque reduction after your differential and your axle shaft. So you get that double effect of like, yeah, we lifted it more and also the diff is smaller. So it just clears everything, it's wild.
Okay. Yeah. So you talked about having mostly stock suspension but you've upgraded the springs. Is there anything else someone needs to do to their suspension to really make this functional? Do they need better shocks? Do they need, a 1 or 2 inch lift? What else do they need to really make this work properly?
Yeah, I mean, as with anything, it's all up to like what you're trying to do. The reason we ended up with a 2-inch spacer lift on the stock springs is because originally we ran the Jeep as it was with 32-inch tires through the Rubicon and decided that like it needed a little more ground clearance before going to the Rubicon. I mean, the point of these portals is you don't actually have to do any upgrades. So like if your shocks aren't blown out and you actually like the way your Jeep rides, you can just bolt these things on and you can put a bigger tire on. So if you start with like a 32 or 33, whatever, stock Jeeps come with these days.
I think it's a car tire, like a 29.
Yeah.
At least that's what they put on the stock Gladiators.
Yeah. So you can take that, and then because of the reduction and the clearance, you can just bolt on or put on 37s or 40s without any other modifications, pretty much.
And it'll do the job just like that. And then obviously you can nth degree it where you do whatever you possibly can, but you don't need to do much lift with the springs and shocks. Maybe you put long arms on, or you put a mid-arm kit on your JL or whatever that has slightly more flexible articulating joints, but you don't need to like fundamentally change your suspension geometry. Like the factory JL or JT or even the IFS rigs and stuff that we're bolting onto, like as you lift them, you're changing caster angle, you're changing a whole bunch of other things in the suspension that work well off-road to articulate, but you don't drive on the street nearly as well. I mean, every off-roader that's put big tires and a big lift kit on a Jeep knows like it's gonna do this in the corners and lean a bunch, and that's just the sacrifice you make. But like when you bolt the portals on, you get all that lift and the gear reduction, and you don't have to do those things. So driving down the highway is much stiffer, smoother, easier to manage, I guess, is what
much more like the stock suspension and much more like the stock ride that you got.
I was going to ask, how does the steering handle it? So like, say you have your stock JK steering, do you feel like you need to beef that up when you're running 40s on the portals, or is it?
Yeah.
I
would say if you're running,
so it's not
if you're running, well,
yeah.
I mean, we ran the 37s. So before we had 40s, we had a set of 37s on, and we had those even before the portals were here. And we did 4 dice. Yeah, we did 4 dice with the 37s with no portals. And I would say like once I was aired down to 10, 11 PSI and got into some rocks, I couldn't steer anyway before the portals. So after the portals, it was kind of still the same way, but it wasn't that much different. So I would say if you're doing, rock crawling with your lockers on, low tire pressures, and you're running a 37 or higher, you're probably going to want to upgrade to, Hydro Assist or whatever. And the portals, maybe it makes it a hair bit worse, but not enough that I even noticed, to be perfectly honest. And we did, we also went to Trail Hero before we had Hydro Assist. So it was a completely stock steering box, pump, and at that point we even had completely centered wheels too. So our scrub radius was terrible. And it was pretty terrible. Like once you're bound up into something, like you can't really steer. But again, like I don't think that's any different with or without portals. Especially if it's the sandstone or whatever it is at Sand Hollow is like so sticky, so you can't steer.
Yeah, there is that.
All the weight that you're adding is unsprung weight. So I can see where I guess changing the shocks really doesn't matter because you're not adding any weight above the axle. So
right,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so there's that part, and then there's also just the amount of weight that you're adding. So like we like to compare ourselves to doing a 1-ton swap. Now that's not to say it's exactly the same, certainly, but
we look forward to your calls and letters.
Yeah. I mean, whatever, DM us, it's fine. But if you're going to run a 40-inch tire on a JK or JL, I mean, I think and rock crawl it heavily. Generally people are looking at some kind of, a Super Duty swap or, a Dynatrack, Ultimate Dana 60, whatever. And if you look at the weight of those axles, like I had like I mentioned, I have the 06 Super Duty axles on my my ZJ, and the front axle alone was like 650 pounds. When you compare that to a Dana 44, which is like 350 pounds, So we're adding 100 or it's 60 pounds per corner ish, so 120 pounds per axle. So you're still like 200 pounds less than a Super Duty axle, which is pretty significant, in terms of unsprung mass and then just generally weight to your vehicle. So yeah, I mean it's kind of like both things, right? You're adding it in the place maybe that's less or has less of a negative effect than like to the chassis or whatever, unsprung mass. But at the same time, you're not adding that much, so it's really not that meaningful.
Okay. The other thing that we haven't talked about, or you guys haven't mentioned, is the additional width. So your tires aren't going to be in the same place, just lower. They're going to be 4 inches pushed out. So if someone's happy with that, great. I'm not going to be happy with 4 inches of extra width. How much offset can I push to bring that wheel back into the vehicle?
So the way that we're tackling it is we have made our own wheels that we're going to be potentially offering with the portals. But in general, you can just use a higher offset wheel. The portal doesn't stop you from moving it in approximately another 2 inches or so. So you've got 4 inches of extra width because of the portal. You can bring that back in with a plus 50, plus 60 millimeter offset wheel. So you're effectively 2 inches per side wider. So for us, most of the time, when I've only haven't built that many rigs, but the ones that I have built, I kind of wanted a little bit extra width over whatever the stock configuration is. So having that's kind of a good spot for us, but you will certainly be adding that amount of width, somewhere between the 2 and 4 inches, depending on your wheel offset. And we do.
Are there wheels that have 60 millimeter offset?
There's not that many, and we are trying to help solve that problem. There are some on the market right now. And I think Method has started recently releasing a set, and we are also going to be trying to jump into that pool because we kind of want to offer the customers that we're selling to the full package solution. So it's not just like, hey, here's the portals, but like you're on your own for everything else, like to make it actually work. We want to be able to just bolt it all on and have it work right away, and you can just go out and go wheeling, along with any of the other upgrades you want to do. But we can potentially offer that as what we're looking at.
From an outsider point of view, someone listening to this for the first time and learning about portals, it sounds like they're an absolute miracle for everything. There's got to be some downsides. What are the negatives of running portals?
I'd say probably the first one that comes to mind is they are extra maintenance, right? So like you have now, think about 4 transfer cases or 4 extra differentials that you are having to maintain. They're not high maintenance, but that doesn't mean there's no maintenance. You still have to change oil on regular intervals. Those intervals we're still trying to figure out, but they're going to be somewhere in the 10 to 20,000 mile range, where you still have to change oil regularly.
Compared to some others on the market that are 5,000 and 7,000, that's a significant reduction in maintenance.
I'm not going to have to deal with them after every time I get off a trail in Sand Hollow after I go blowing through the dunes and doing.
That was going to be my question. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Scott, you drove yours all the way out to Sand Hollow. We wheeled a whole bunch, drove it on the road a bunch after that. And we have not been changing the oil nearly that often as once a trail or once a trip or anything.
Well, and also specifically what's giving us that number is the oil temperature. So we've got thermistors in all the portals, and we've been measuring the oil temperature as we go. And Matt just alluded to the trip we did to Sand Hollow. So from here where we live to Sand Hollow is about 650 miles. And we drove out there in one day, and it was like 100 degrees-ish the whole time. And we're going up grades and whatever. And we only saw like 200 degrees Fahrenheit as the peak temperature in the portal oil while we were driving out there. So that's barely stressing this gear oil. We're using just regular differential oils like 75 weight 90 synthetic. Okay. And you can definitely take that up to higher temperatures. So that's why we're saying we think we can actually go higher based on the temperature. But we just don't have the data right now. So we're kind of like starting in that 10,000 mile range.
Okay. So I'm seeing some other companies trying to come out into the market in the same type of price range, which, that $10,000 to $15,000 price range mark, which is phenomenal for portals. If no one knows, they generally are 20,000 plus. So minimum, if you guys come in at a much lower price point is awesome. But what I see with some of the other ones, they are gear drive, and you guys are their chain drive and your gear drive. Can you explain the difference and why one might be better than the other?
Wait, is someone making chain-driven portals for street legal vehicles? Whoa. Okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean,
company overseas.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, the biggest difference. Wow, that's kind of a tough question to answer, actually. No. I think the
I'm here.
Yeah. it's a good question. I think the biggest difference. Well, one, I guess, just the inherent difference between gears and chains is the direction of rotation. So in our case, we have to have an intermediate gear to get the output shaft to spin the correct way. So it's kind of hard to describe, but basically with a stock normal car or whatever, the wheels spin or the axle shaft spins forward, right? And then if you were to add a gear train to that with just two gears, and you attached one gear to where the axle shaft was and another gear to the other one, you would actually spin the tire backwards when you're trying to go forward. So that's not good. But with a chain-driven system, you can actually just have two sprockets, and they will spin the same direction. So you only need one input, one output. With a gear-driven one, if you want to have a forward spinning output, which most Jeeps are going to want that because of the way they're set up, Jeeps or whatever vehicle. So we actually have to have an intermediate gear in between the input and the output to get the direction to be correct. And then we also add a secondary intermediate just to add extra strength, so you get basically double the contact area in for the input gear. And then the other thing, man, just kind of off the top of my head, like chains, I'm not going to say that they're going to be weaker inherently. Like, I don't think that that's true. You can size any chain or any gear to be whatever strength you want. But I would think actually about the how the chain stretches over time. So gears, they're going to wear, but they're not going to wear meaningfully. Whereas a chain will stretch over time, I would think. And in something like, all of our Jeeps and modern Toyotas and whatever have gear-driven transfer cases, so maybe that's not such a big deal. But you only use the gear-driven part when you're in four-wheel drive, which for me is less than 95% of the time.
Transfer case, Scott?
What was that?
So when's the last time you took apart a Jeep transfer case that it was gear-driven?
Sorry. Did I say gear-driven? What I meant was chain-driven.
Sorry.
Yeah, Rubicon
They're all chain-driven.
What I meant to say was chain-driven. Yes, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Wow.
You're right. Yeah.
That coming in hot though. Just what are you talking about, dude?
Under the bus. That's wild.
But there's gears in the transfer case, so that means it's gear-driven, right?
Yeah, that's how that works.
There you go. Yeah. He's just keeping him honest.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, you mentioned that the portals allow for a gear reduction, so you're not going from your 410s to 488s or 513s or whatever. Can you choose what gear ratio you want with the portals, or is it going to be fixed? And if I go to portals, I have to go to 38s or 40s.
Yeah. So right now we're just sticking to the 1.25 ratio. We're not going to have other options. At some point in the future, it's definitely possible. We know we can fit other gear ratios in, but just not something we're trying to tackle right now. We're trying to stay narrow and focused, get this product going.
Okay. So if someone's buying we'll talk Jeeps because that's what most of us know here, even though there's a whole world of other products. I have a brand new Gladiator. It came with 410s. If I'm using that gear ratio, what's my effective output on the other side, and what size tires would that dictate that I need to run?
Yeah, wow, I'm in the current boat right now. I've just purchased the Gladiator with the 1.25 ratio. The 410 gears on the differential will effectively be 513s at your wheel, is how you can think about it. So typically, if you're in a 513 gear, you're in a 37 plus inch tire. 37 or 40 is usually roughly good with the Gladiator transfer case and transmission. Luckily, those things have that 8-speed. I think it's an 8-speed automatic transmission that can kind of soak up a little bit more of it. And especially if you've got a diesel that's got a ton of the low end torque, you can be a little bit more flexible with that. But I'd say for the most part, yeah, if you're just running the stock Gladiator setup, put the portals on, you're going to want to be somewhere in that 37 to 40 inch tire for the road driving mechanics of it.
Okay, perfect.
And then even I was going to say my gears in the JK are 373s, which puts it at 466. So it's a little bit of a dog on the freeway with 40s, but it's fine.
Gets the job done.
You will get there. All right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it goes 75 miles an hour, so
somebody could re-gear their diff to get a different final output if they really wanted to.
If they really wanted to, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our
It seems like a lot of effort.
Yeah, our main
Well,
target market is
if
the.
you really want to run 35s.
Yeah.
You're going to need to go down to,
I don't
even
know,
what, 3D8s or something.
I don't know a whole lot of people getting into the off-road Jeep game that are like, yeah, I don't want to go bigger tires. I definitely want. There are some people that like it, and
which
they're doing
you know,
more
which
of the
is funny
overland
because
and-
I thought that we were going to kind of change that culture, or like that was part of our plan, was to be like,
I'm here
oh, no,
for it. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
you
I'm
don't
here
need-
for the change of culture.
yeah, like you don't need to run 40s anymore. You can get over the thing with 37s or 35s. But
You
people
can.
are like, wait, you're saying I could run an even bigger tire? And we're like, wait, what? How did you?
Yeah.
I can run a 42
You
on my
have the
Dana
wrong
44.
message.
Like,
that's what everybody heard. Oh, I could run a 40 on a Dana 44. Let's do it.
yeah.
It's so
Okay.
funny. Yeah.
I'm not done yet. I still have a list.
But for,
Okay.
but for JD and people like him, if you wanted to run the 35s, you certainly could, and you could have the clearance of someone maybe like Pope that's on 42s, and you could say, yeah, I can clear the same rocks, and I don't need 42-inch tires and everything that comes with 42-inch tires.
And you didn't have to cut this crap out of your frame and body, and you didn't have to spend $150,000 building your Jeep.
Yeah.
Now you're not speaking at all from any kind of knowledge base, right?
I'm just telling you, I have a completely different plan with the Bronco.
Amen, brother. Let's talk about breakage. I mean, things happen, right? I mean, whatever, things happen. If a gear breaks in one of the gearboxes on a trail, are you completely disabled? What do you do at that point? Can you drive it out, or do you need to take all four of them off on the trail to be able to get off the trail? It's like worst case scenario.
Sure.
Here,
So you do have a couple of options, and to be clear, we have gotten into that situation intentionally. When we first started kind of designing the whole thing, we came up with a gear size that we were very confident in, and did all the math that says, yeah, this should be good.
This should work.
Math is awesome, and we said, okay, what if we overdid it? Because you set your gear width defines how wide you're pushing out your portal, and we said, well, if we can make it narrower, that's generally better for keeping the tires tight and not pushing it out as far. So we said, we kicked off all the gears that we wanted on the correct, full thickness that we were comfortable with. And we also kicked off a set that was 25% and 20 and 40% thinner, just to see, like, if we go out and beat the heck out of this thing on 40% thinner gears and they don't blow up, then like we know we overdid it. And either we can decide to make it thinner, or we can just say, hey, we way overdid it, and these things are completely super beefy, whatever you want to advertise it as. So we did that, and as it turns out, when you go 40% thinner, they tend to break if you design them poorly.
Imagine that.
Yeah, so we made them 40% thinner and added some oil channels in there that, like, it just made it so that it afterwards, in hindsight, we were like, yeah, this was bound to fail. Like, this was gonna do it.
We just turned it into a Swiss cheese. Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, the full width gears, they've been doing fine since day one, and we've even added some extra strength just because of it to make those okay. But we have been on a trail with those super thin gears, blew up the portal, and it does lock up your tire, right? So you are in a situation where it will fully lock up whatever that thing is. So if you're stuck somewhere, you've got to move it to a place where you can work on it or be able to slide it or whatever it is. In that situation, luckily we had an extra portal that we swapped on, but you could pull the portal apart, take the gears out, put the output shaft back in, and it will roll. It just won't be driven anymore. Okay. So it'd be kind of like breaking a front or rear axle shaft on a full float vehicle, basically. Where you could,
not totally dead in the water then.
Not totally dead, no.
And just for a sense of like how long it would take to do that, we just broke the 20% smaller ones. We were at Hammers after doing Jackhammer and then Blueberry, like trails that we probably shouldn't
with no rear locker, just
with no rear locker, yeah,
doing things we shouldn't have been doing. To be fair.
By ourselves.
Go check out guys who were surprised. People were like, "Yeah, we just want to put bigger tires on it."
Yeah.
Fair.
I'm not saying we aren't part of that group.
Yeah. But yeah, we broke the one 2 months ago at King of the Hammers, and from the time it broke to the time we were driving again, which included recovering it, moving it off the trail, whatever, it was maybe 2 hours, like maybe an hour and a half. Like it's very easy to get these things off and on. And if we had to take one apart and put it back together, I don't even think we would have had to take it off the vehicle at that point, right?
It would have been easier to
it would have been easier. Yeah,
dump all the stuff out and then put it
dump
back
the stuff
together.
out, close it up, put oil back in it. Yeah, you're probably talking a 2 hour turnaround. So like worst case scenario, you're still driving out of there, like, and you're just in 3-wheel drive now.
Better than blowing a U-joint and being completely dead.
Right.
Yep.
And the thing is, you're going to have a really hard time breaking the output shaft, which is the most critical component because it's a 40 spline shaft, so it's a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's so go ahead, Kerry.
No. Finish up.
So to the point then, how you guys are changing these things on the side of a trail? How hard are they to install? Are they literally just bolt on?
It is actually a bolt-on installation, and I'd say Scott and I, we first put these on when we first put them together. When we put them on the JK, had plenty of things that we had to work through to like make sure that we don't have customers that have to deal with this on like trying to fit things together right and all that stuff. The very first time we put it together probably took us 8 hours to fully install all 4 corners, and we're driving at the end of the day.
It was like 9 a.m. we started, and then and we even had to like angle grind some stuff that didn't fit right, and whatever.
All the things
we bought these spacers that we thought were the right thing. Turns out they weren't. We had to go sort whatever.
Go to the hardware store. Yeah.
And we were driving by 7 p.m. So like, it was. Honestly, the hardest part of the install is changing adding extended brake lines and doing the e-brake cable install.
Yeah,
that's been the most challenging part.
Yeah, the actual install of the portals is like a jack, some jack stands, snap ring pliers, and a bunch of hex keys and an impact wrench. And those, like, I took a picture when we last did this to just like see how many tools I used and just laid them all out on the table, and there was like 8. It wasn't anything crazy. You don't need a lift. You don't need anything like insane to get these things installed. And
we'll have a video actually coming out pretty soon here of the one that we broke at Hammers, and we rebuilt that one because it was our spare on the table at our booth in Hammertown. So and that was also like 6 or 7 tools, like 4 Allen keys and like an impact and a dead blow, and that was it. So you'll see that video in the next couple weeks, and we kind of did it partially because that was the only table we had, and partially because it was funny.
Well, I mean, part of it is to see if you could. That's pretty impressive. Go ahead, Kerry.
So I've been following you guys probably since your second video. And nice. I want to say, if you want to kind of understand the capabilities of portals, go on YouTube, search Portal Pros, find them, and watch their videos. And you see the lines that they can take. You see how much clearance they can go. And when there's one of the first times they're coming up, and he's like, "What line should I take?" And the other guy's like, "Just go."
That happens very frequently. Like once or twice a trail, I look at Scott and I'm like, "Dude, I don't know, just drive and it'll be fine."
It's amazing how much that ground clearance makes a difference. Oh yeah.
That ground clearance really helped with that V-notch.
Yeah.
Is that on Twister?
This was
what's that one called?
V-notch?
No, it's oh my god.
777s?
No, the military one, the veteran one.
Oh, the Fallen.
The Fallen,
yeah. So you can see the stock suspension really getting after it there.
Yeah, this is before we added any sort of better suspension arms or anything. And it did the whole trail, and this was on our 37s and poor offset wheels.
This is a great example here. You are using stock suspension. So if you changed the suspension, are you going to be able to get more articulation, especially the droop?
Yeah. I mean, the portals don't because they just bolt onto your stock knuckles. They don't actually change anything about the suspension. So, if you still wanted to go to long arms and some kind of lift, it's going to have the same performance. It might even be more because you're technically now extending the beam out farther. So you will get more travel in an articulated situation. Not that I would say that that's going to be that meaningful, but technically it will be more.
That does apply for solid axle vehicles. If you're talking IFS, pushing it out when you're on an A-arm setup or a dual A-arm setup, it does actually increase your wheel travel having the extra width of the port.
JD, can you go back to that video? There's something I want to point out in there that they haven't mentioned, but I think is a very cool thing to point out here. We'll just move forward a little bit until we see a side view of the vehicle. What you'll see is this little hose that's going from the center hub to the rim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's our, it's called a CTIS, Central Tire Inflation System. So not a new thing by any means. Oh yeah, you can see it there. It's something that's actually been around. I don't know how. Actually, I really should look up exactly how long. But anyway, it's been around for at least
the earliest one that I know of. You know.
Yeah. So yeah, they've been around for a while. But basically, what it allows you to do is you have air hoses that are hooked up directly to your tires through the portals at all times. So you can air up and air down from a control panel inside the cab, and you don't have to get out of the car to air up or air down.
While you're moving.
Yeah, while you're moving.
Do it on the fly, for sure.
Yeah. Now that being said, we figured out the portal side of this, not so much the controls and all that kind of part of it. So this is very much a prototype. It technically works, but yeah, it's far from being ready to ship.
Yeah.
But it's one of the advantages of portals is it enables things like this.
Correct. Right. Yeah. Something
exactly.
on your standard axle that comes from the factory, because you can't plumb air directly through your axle shaft. But because we're offset, we can plumb air through our output shaft and allow that to work.
That is seriously cool.
Yeah, it's great for lazy people like us.
Yeah. I really just I can't wait for the day where we go snow wheeling and I'm at like 12 psi and and the tires are just kind of spinning and I'm sitting not moving and I just go and then they just start going, you know? Like I want to get that on a video so bad just to show how easy it is. Okay, drop to 0. Okay, air back up to 5.
Yeah, exactly. There's somebody I follow on Instagram and I think they're in Greenland, I think, and every season that was the first time I saw it, and he just has hoses that come out the outside because he doesn't have to worry about things catching on anything because he's driving over snow.
Yeah, and
I was just like, that's the coolest thing ever. And when I saw that on the list, I'm just like, man, that almost makes it worth the price right there. Just like that's like I'd do it just for that.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
You get off asphalt, you flip the switch, you're at the trailhead. People are like, let's air down. You're like, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even right now, so with the setup we have, when we first installed it, it was leaking, or like somewhere in the controller, it's still leaking. We never resolved that because we've been working on other things that are more important, the portals. But yeah, so we added some just check valves at the wheels. So like right now, technically the air is not connected to the central tire inflation system. It's just shut off at the wheel. But even getting out, opening those up and airing down or airing up, like one time we finished wheeling one day and I went open all the valves, I pressed start, and I was done airing up before my friend had his multi-tire inflation system out installed to start filling up. I was like, you ready to go, man?
Wow.
He's like, oh, what? I just started. I'm like, oh, all right, I guess I'll wait then.
I'll wait for you. Yeah, awesome. Are you in production or how soon? Because I think you're already running late, right? I mean, they were supposed to be a month ago. So
hey, wow, shots fired.
Wow, dude.
Like, wow, coming in all directions, guys. I had nothing to do with this. Yeah.
I get it. Everything runs late because you've been putting these things to some brutal tests to make sure that they're going to be ready for production. So where are you at in the production cycle?
So we just recently went through this process, and the reason we are pushing out the timeline a little bit was because the version 2 setup that we had we're very confident in, but there's just some things about it when you're taking them apart and putting them back together and working on them that we're just like, I don't like this. As someone who works on Jeeps and stuff a lot, like this bothers me. I need to fix this. And we were like, okay, let's fix all those things and make it as bulletproof as we possibly can and easy to work on as we can. And you know what? If we got to move it out 2 months to make sure that those parts come in, we test them, they're good, we're happy with it, I think we want to do that. So originally we were trying to ship to our first customers, which we're have a small group of early adopters that have already, jumped in to say that they want a set. We were going to ship to those customers sometime in May. Now it's sometime, mid to late summer that we're working through.
Kerry, are you one of those customers?
Not yet.
After the podcast, we'll
get you on the list.
Podcast. I'm going to have a little discussion here.
Yeah. So then from there, that's our first set of actual quote unquote production orders that have almost already been filled, basically. And then those will be the first Jeep customers. We also have a set of that group for Toyota customers, for the 4Runner, Lexus, and Tacoma people. And then we're hoping actual production, like you can just go online and order a set, or you can go to a shop and order a set through them sometime towards the end of this year is the goal. If we hit that, we're going to be super stoked. If not, we're going to make sure that we're confident in our ability to deliver instead of like, hey, let's take all the people's money and then hope we can get there. We want to make sure like, hey, I can put this in today and I will get you a set in whatever time frame we have. We want to make sure that we're at that point. So we're going to get there and then let people know like, hey, we've got it. The design's good. Manufacturing's good. We're confident we can ship you a set. Put your order in today and we'll get it for you sometime end of the year.
And I'm guessing a lot of those early adopters are going to be people who work on their own vehicles, and they're going to appreciate the fact that you took a few extra steps to make sure that you fixed some of those issues. And
for sure,
that's going to be better for your reputation in the long run.
Yeah, we're hoping so.
Nothing is worse than a rushed bad product. Yeah, and that's why I've been following you guys for a long time, is watching the evolution of it, watching your you put a lot of stuff out there that a lot of other companies wouldn't put out with some of your testing. And there's like a shot of the garage. It's like all these different prototypes up there. It's like they've been doing the engineering work on this to get these things right. And to me, that gives me a lot of confidence in your company, knowing how much effort you're putting in. This isn't just, well, let's get it off the drawing board, take it to CNC and start shipping it.
Well, and one of the things I think to that end is how kind of transparent you guys have been about that testing process, right? Like you guys have been pretty open on your YouTube channel. And when I talk to you, and obviously in these conversations, what's been working, what hasn't, making some changes. You got to make some changes if you found stuff you didn't like.
I think that stems from us being people that want to buy this product and developed it, because like I just had a Jeep and I wanted it, and we've bought other products and seen the development, and we've wanted that transparency and haven't gotten it in a lot of cases. And just our passion for wanting to make a good product and show people that it is a good product and show all the faults and everything else that we've gone through, like that was really, I think, important to us when we first started. And we love getting this kind of feedback. We're like, hey, we're not alone. This is a good thing that we're doing, like sharing the info and all that.
Yeah.
You don't want to end up on an episode of Donuts Mechanics versus Engineers.
Yeah. Well, another thing to kind of add to what Matt was saying, like part of the approach that we've taken to this design, obviously we've talked about trying to make it cost effective, but also serviceable, because, well, like we've talked about like Matt and I's capabilities, let's say, as fabricators, installers, whatever, engineers. Most people don't have this stuff. So like, I did a Super Duty axle swap in my garage. I went to a junkyard. I picked up, I rented a U-Haul trailer, dragged it back to my house, back these axles to my house, and then chopped them up, put on new brackets, welded it all myself, installed it, did custom suspension to match that. It took me like, 3 or 6 months or whatever, like every single weekend, getting covered in grinder dust, ruining everything that's in the garage, and like, I don't ever want to do that again, but I want to run 37s and 40s on my Jeeps. And, like I want to be able to, so basically like what we're trying to say is we're trying to give a more attainable overall package for people that's less of a headache. So you can go to the Jeep dealership or the Toyota dealership and buy the Rubicon or the TRD Pro or whatever, and, bring that thing home. The next day you put the portals on, and then the third day you're on the Rubicon or Fordyce, having a great time. And that's kind of like the way we're approaching it is like more attainable, more serviceable, easier to like overall thing to deliver to get you out on the trails.
Okay. I guess one of my last things, and this not for me because I know the answer, but for some of the viewers out there, when we're talking about a product that's in that like $15,000 price range, 12, 15, the tendency is to compare it to, okay, what would my normal course of action be, right? It'd be a lift, it'd be those types of things. But if you can't just compare it to a lift, because you're going to come in half the price of portals. You have to look at it as going, well, if I'm going to go all in and do axle swaps, then the portals are going to come in a lot cheaper than that by as much of a factor of lift versus portals as portals are to axles. So it's thinking about where do you want to spend that money, and you can't do it piecemeal. It's one shot and you're done, right? I can do a lift. I can then do some re-gearing. I can change I can live with bigger tires on bad gears for a little while. With portals, you can't piecemeal it. It's one shot and you're done. But you have to put it in perspective of what are you comparing it to. You're not comparing it to a basic lift. You're comparing it to a lift and axle swaps.
Right. Yeah. So I think the way to approach that is like start kind of at a fundamental level. What do you want to do with your vehicle? I want to go and do level 9, level 10 trails with my Jeep Wrangler. You're probably running 40-inch tires. How do you enable running 40-inch tires and doing those trails and not having to worry about it? Typically, to this point in time, it's been, I'm going to go buy some aftermarket axles. I'm going to go buy some used, Super Duty axles. I'm going to swap them in myself. With that, I'm going to have to get a lift, whether I make that in my garage or buy some off-the-shelf kit. You're going to have to then go to an 8-lug wheel. And there's a lot of, and then depending on the route you're going, you're now looking at 15 to 20 grand, maybe 30, 40 grand, depending on how crazy you go, to be able to run 40-inch tires on a Jeep. And so if you're comparing that option to this option where it's a lot less work, a lot less custom stuff, and potentially saving you money, and then if you compare any of those things, you still lose ground clearance. You're not, or maybe you gain a little bit if you have a big enough tire, but you're not going to get the performance that you're going to get out of portals. So really the best customer for us would be someone who goes and buys a new Rubicon or whatever and wants to run a 37 or a 40, and is kind of preparing to go down that axle swap route, where they're going to spend the 20, 30, 40 grand. I think the trickier customer is the one who is either, maybe JD, you're a good example where you've started some upgrades, but maybe, you're not so sure and you bought the 35s or and you're like, should I go to 37s? Should I go to 40s? So that's, like you said, Kerry, piecemealing it is a little bit easier when you're going that route. You can do the upgraded, tires, and then the lift, and then the re-gear, and then, all this other stuff. I think if you really lay out the price difference, and if you want to run 37s or 40s confidently, it's pretty competitive.
If not significantly less, depending
potentially
on
cheaper. Yeah.
Now, I'll say JD is the perfect candidate because he can be on a trail, break something, unbolt them, and say it's stock.
I'm trying to keep that lifetime max care warranty as alive as it can be until they don't want to let me have it anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that's cool about our design is, not to say you can go to a dealership and maintain your warranty, because that's probably not true.
I appreciate your honesty in that statement.
I don't know, maybe.
Hope you want to put that to the test?
Yeah, right.
Do you think you can go talk to the service manager and show them the engineering behind it and tell them that it's going to be okay?
I think the service manager's job is to deny warranty claims, so I don't know if that's going to work out. But where I was going with that is our design is modular or kind of universal. So basically, the actual gears, the box itself, that is the same whether it's on a Jeep JK, a JL, a JT, a Tacoma, a 4Runner, etc. There's some bits that have to change, like you've got different mounting plates to go to the front steering knuckle on a JK as opposed to the knuckle on a 4Runner or whatever. And there's a few other things that kind of in that realm, but this is sort of a one-time investment that you can take throughout your wheeling career. So right now I have it on my JK. Well, maybe in a couple years from now, I decide I need a 4Runner because my JK, the 3.6 motor finally dies on me after 14,000 miles. No, I'm just kidding.
Months from now, yeah.
But you can call us up. Yeah, you can call us up and say, hey, I'm going from this to this. Can you send me the new parts? And then we send you, the new adapters or the new input gear to match your new stub shaft or whatever. and you can put all your old stock parts back, sell the old vehicle, and keep the lift, the regear, everything with you. It's portable. So that's a big piece that you certainly are not getting from any other lift kit or axle swap or anything like that. That work stays with that vehicle.
Portability.
These can kind of transfer with you.
Having built enough and then tried to sell stuff, knowing that like, yeah, you put 10 grand into this thing, 15 grand or whatever it is, all of that, value plummets once you drive it around and it's used. But this is like, okay, I spent the 15 grand or whatever to put this on. Now I bought a JL, JT, like Scott said, or you went to Toyota Land, and you could bring it with you. It's we think is awesome.
That's something I hadn't even considered at all.
You can really screw up the next owner by putting your 5x5s on your Toyota.
We've had many conversations of putting some nice Jeep wheels on a Lexus or a 4Runner.
It's going to happen for sure.
It's going to happen. Yeah.
I have a question about what vehicles you are going to be able to support initially. What you're planning to what do you support now? What's on your roadmap?
So the immediate, at the outset, the plan is for us to be able to support your Jeep Wrangler JK, JL, and JT. The Gladiator. And then on the Toyota side is the Toyota 4Runner for 03 and up, the Toyota Tacoma, and the Lexus GX470 platform, basically. So that's the ones that we're currently developing, that we've been testing over this last year or so, that we'll be releasing for when we go to actual production. After that, it's still a little up in the air. I know we have been talking about developing for the Dana 60 platforms, Super Duty, etc. Basically, the way, like Scott was talking about earlier, because the thing is modular, you can take it from vehicle to vehicle. That development's relatively straightforward for us. Like the box and everything mostly stays the same for newer vehicles. There's things to figure out like ABS and CV, spline count, stuff like that, and brakes that we have to adapt for. That's mostly what the time is going to be, but it's not like we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and say, completely design a whole new portal box and then go test it and make sure it works. As we get to the 1-ton platforms, if we go that route, it is probably going to be a stronger platform, maybe. We're still trying to figure out if we're going to need that or not. So we're evaluating that, but the roadmap after that is kind of open. Like, we haven't decided where we're going to go, and I think we're going to reach out to the community at large and just say, who here wants portals? Let us know.
It's not the worst way.
The people. This is the longest list. You guys are first.
The difficulty there is going to be that people who have already done all these upgrades, like Pope was saying, you get all the people who've already upgraded Dana 60s or 70s or 90s, whatever they have, they're already running deeper gears. And now to put portals on, they'd have to put on 50-inch tires to get the right gear ratio.
Yeah, you're getting the picture.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem.
Sold. All right, 50-inch tires.
We're trying to make the tires small, or
I got a problem here.
And I get what you're saying, Kerry, but I think there's the vast majority of the wheelers out there are like me. There's more of us with 35s and 37s that want a little bit more lift without breaking the bank on all of the rest of it. That this appeals
I absolutely agree with you, JD, on that. I'm saying for the people who already have 60s on 513s or whatever they have, this is not the right product for them, because they'd have to re-gear lower or higher to get the final output.
Oh yeah,
this would be for.
If you knew how many times I busted gears regearing isn't actually that big of a thing. They're like,
it is for some people.
Yeah,
it's a big deal for
some replaceable part at this point on this Gladiator.
This would be for the customer in those applications that's looking to build the new rig, right? There's still plenty of people out there that are like, I want to put a Super Duty 60 under it, but man, if I could also put portals on it, that would be the most super awesome rig that I could ever think of. Like, yeah, let's build it, but you're right. Adapting with existing rigs, you have some challenges there, because you may already have 8 inches of lift or 6 inches of lift. Another 4 is a lot,
I almost kind of I look at these in seriousness. I actually look at them as there's an alternative to putting the 1-tons on. At this point, that's kind of how I look at it. It's the alternative to doing it. It gets you the same bang for your buck, and actually probably even better in some cases because the gear reduction, you're going to save a little bit of money down the road on some
and
things.
we obviously feel the same way that like this could be your alternative to a 1-ton swap. The only reason we're even evaluating like, hey, can we put it on a Super Duty 60 is because it's probably the most common question we get in our like Instagram DMs or emails and stuff is like, hey, you guys making it for the Super Duty platforms? You guys are making it, like we get other vehicles.
I would put it on my Ultimate Dana 60s in 10 minutes and then put 37s on it and re-gear to like 363 or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we went into it thinking like we know the big market out there is obviously people building a Jeep that they bought off the lot or that want to run 37s or 40s and avoid a 1-ton swap. And then other people are like, hey, what if I put 42s and a Super Duty axle on it? Like, that would be cool.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Those are the people who think like me, I think.
Yeah. And
we're building our JT right now, and we're at this crossroads of going lift or seeing where we're at with portals, and it's so funny that talking to some people and you go, oh, what do you consider? Oh, we're thinking about portals. Like, oh my God, portals would be so badass. I'd be so bitching. And then the other half of the people are like, but this is your JT. Why would you put portals on there? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why do you need portals for overlanding? I'm like, well, maybe you haven't seen where we go overlanding.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any idea of the kind of stuff we occasionally get ourselves into?
Yeah. They're not parking at the campground at a national park here. It's just
right. I mean,
but even
I want to be able to do Lockhart Basin. I want to be able to do the Rubicon. I want to be able to do Fordyce, and I want to be able to do Rimrocker Trail.
For that point though, on the overland community, a lot of the people in that community are running Toyota platform where you're stuck with IFS unless you want to do a solid axle swap and try and do all that effort, which is huge. And for those people, portals make a ton of sense to save you. Anytime you try to lift an IFS, you're putting long arms on it and you're going to ruin your CV angles, and you're kind of trading a really big trade-off in your suspension design that you have from the factory for that, just to be able to put a bigger tire on. Whereas if you have the portals, you keep all of that geometry the same, your CV angles stay nice and flat. You're not worried about, destroying those and hurting your steering at higher angles, because all that stays nice and factory or close to factory if you want to keep it that way. And then you bring the portals in, you get the regear and the lift. Now you can put 35s or 37s on your 4Runner without having to do, an immense amount of work to put a long arm travel kit on it and then match everything in the rear with whatever suspension you want to do in the rear and doing all that effort. You get all the performance out of bigger tires and more ground clearance under the IFS that you just can't get from anything else realistically,
That's an amazing point. And I didn't think about that because, I'd have to think about Toyotas. So
we've been thinking a lot about Toyotas.
We look forward to your calls and letters, everybody. Yep.
We promise we like Toyotas.
Better, JD.
No, you're good. I will say this, Matt. One of the things that you said to me, like, I don't think it's just the new people, right? Like, I've got a relatively mild build, right? And if I just want to extend the life of that JK a few years, and then I can, knowing that I can take those portals to the next vehicle that I get, like that changes the perspective for me on a whole different level, because that means that's a long-term investment that I can keep regardless of whether or not I keep the Jeep.
Yeah, I feel like you are like Kerry said. I feel like you are more the customer than I am, unless you're talking about my Bronco. But when you're looking at my JT and stuff, those things are already built. Those things are already built, right? So
you've already done your damage.
And but you've got a modest Jeep that still has it's still like a blank slate. I've already scribbled all over the thing and burned parts of the canvas. So I can't go back and put portals on. You can, and you could just start here. And a lot of people may even buy an older Jeep just to build and put portals on it and then go rock crawl and beat the shit out of it. So
they don't ruin their nice daily. For you to start looking for takeoffs so you can go back to stock.
Well, that's what's funny, like we've talked about, we're XJ or ZJ owners, and we have friends with XJs, and with how cheap JK Rubicon axles are and JL Rubicon axles, I think this is going to start being an option. I mean, it's you're going to go and get the XJs that people want to turn into buggies and buy Dana 44s instead of Super Duty axles. Which is
throw portals on them, and your damn big tires stay without cutting much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It's going to be pretty sick.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Without having the weaknesses of the 44.
Yeah. Well, making your price point more affordable means you're going to have more people that can get in there and play with it and do weird things and do stuff that you weren't like, yeah, I didn't think that people would be like, yeah, I just going to use that as an excuse to go for bigger tires. It's those things you don't think about, right? It's the community is going to tell you what they want to do with the new toys that they've found.
Totally.
I mean, to be fair, we're not talking college student budget here.
But
I think for the vast majority of those of us who are, if we're having this conversation, either with ourselves or with our significant others, because that has to happen. I think that
I'm saving, honey.
Yeah, we're well. Never mind. I don't want to get into that.
Well, actually, another kind of point related to this conversation, what vehicles are we going to go to next, and kind of what Matt was talking about, the IFS stuff. I think another thing that we kind of envision long term is enabling vehicles that weren't traditionally off-roaders to become off-roaders, and specifically, this might be a hot take, Subarus. Like Subaru. I used to have a Subaru, so I feel like I can talk to this with a little bit of authority.
What's that? Honey, would you like some portals on your Subaru?
But it's a platform.
Let's do it.
It's like Outbacks and Porsches or whatever. Like they're a platform that people totally love.
Yeah.
And you see them, maybe not all the time, but certainly around, where people have put a lot of money into like tuning those things up, put all terrains on them, lift them 2 inches or whatever. But they're pretty capped, like very early. And I think that's going to turn into a spot where people go, oh wait, I can put 35s on an Outback. And you go, yeah, and they're like, holy shit, yeah.
or a Porsche Cayenne,
yeah.
So we'll see where it goes, but I think part of this is going to be getting again, like non-traditional off-roady type vehicles to become off-roaders, which is going to be pretty cool. Like I would be very happy to drive the first Outback with portals across the Rubicon.
Hey, I just had dibs from my wife over here. So.
Okay.
Surprised she's not throwing things at you.
To be totally Southern fair, California has crazy Subaru drivers that do rock crawling, so this isn't out of the question by any means.
No, my wife is off camera, and she wants us to go to portals on the Gladiator. So I have her support to a certain extent here.
So we'll get one set for the Subaru, one set for the Gladiator. Do you need a third?
I mean, I've already got 38s on my JL, but hey, buy two.
If you don't have 42s.
Not yet. Geez. I could.
Good Lord, yeah.
JD Randy's commuter is still on stock axles. We could put portals and 37s. Oh, it already has 37s. We could put portals on it and be like, it's just what she needs.
Yeah, because if I go back to some of the original recordings of the show, I'm pretty sure she wanted to keep that just level so she could just drive that to and from work. How's that been working out?
It still drives to and from work.
Okay.
Doesn't an okay job.
The day I bought the JT, I sent a picture of it to Randy and said, "Look what we just got." And her first response back was "portals?" ? Oh
my God. I'm not surprised by that at all.
Yeah, we have a Gladiator family, and that's how we talk about it. We were like, man, portals would have been cool instead of Dana 60s.
There's definitely something to be said for the next couple of years, the cool factor, when not that many people have portal axles, and you walk and you're like, why is your diff so far up there? What the hell's going on? Oh,
it'd be real cool to. It'd be real cool just to see what you can climb over. Like some of the video you guys have posted. As Kerry said earlier, I will recommend you guys go check out the YouTube channel. Like we showed a little bit of the clip of the Sand Hollow stuff that you guys did, but there's way more of it, and it's impressive to see what it was doing. I'll show you guys. Show the Chocolate Thunder video.
Oh yeah.
I feel like King of the Hammers really shows off the portal usage, because it's just loose stuff with a bunch of boulders that are so much easier to climb when you don't have a diff to catch on everything.
Yeah, like so you made a couple runs at this over the course of a couple minutes. Who was driving? Actually, I should ask.
Me.
Yeah, Scott was driving. He's the only person that's
okay.
willing to go into Chocolate Thunder during King of the Hammers on a night.
That's very brave.
Yeah.
So you have a decent insurance policy.
Want you to fail.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, except right here when I smash it into the door into this rock. Here?
Yeah, when you're backing up.
Oh, I may have cut the backing up part because I wanted to.
No,
to cut
I think it's right
No,
here.
it's right here. Yeah.
It's coming up.
You see, I'm the one taking video here, safely up on the hill, avoiding the chaos.
With all the Bud Light drinkers.
Yeah, right there.
Crunch. You see the regret right there.
Yep. Oh,
Portals
womp womp.
Can't quite save you from bad driving. It can save you from a lot.
That's the thing. The biggest limitation now. Yeah, the biggest limitation now is just me.
Yeah.
Is this a driver?
Yeah.
Like, at that point, though, you made good work of it.
Yeah. Once I
Like
get
at
on
this
the
point,
right
you're just going up. Yeah.
Oh,
What
I
tires
like to take
are
the
those,
safe line
40s?
and yeah, they're 40s. Yeah, you can see the door there. Oh, how nice.
Yeah, good dent.
Does that door still open?
Oh yeah, it's perfectly fine.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty much surface level. It's no big deal.
Oh, okay.
And my wife actually
Yeah, that's
likes
just
it.
madness. Oh, the dent? It shows the character.
I was
right?
gonna fix it, and she was like, "Nah, leave it."
She told everybody she did it.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. That's awesome, man. Like it's just again, it doesn't. Once you got on the right line, it didn't seem like it made that much of an effort to get up it. And yeah, you're running 40s, but still, there's a lot of boulders there.
Yeah.
Right. It's definitely not a trivial obstacle to go up.
No, not at all. All right, good deal, guys. Okay. Well, so guys, what else? Real quick to ask you just a flavor question then. So is the Subaru like the dream vehicle to put portals on, or is there is it a lawnmower? What's the dream vehicle to put portals on? Like
Subaru Brat.
Subaru Brat.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. Subaru Brat with 40s. Oh, dude.
Am I right? Am I right?
Like an old Jeep Commando. What do you want?
It'd be almost like an LJ at that. With that wheelbase.
Mine would definitely be the late 80s, early 90s Ford Ranger, those really square ones.
Yeah.
I love those.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to own one of those at some point. And yeah, with some like JT or JL Dana 44s and 37s on it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Nice.
I think this
What about you, man?
mixed reviews in our community, we'll see, but I'd love to see an EV on portals someday. Like,
Yeah.
to me, a rock crawling vehicle to have instant torque and not have to like deal with everything else, to have all that control that an EV would give you. If I could rock crawl an EV on portals, like I would be so
Have them
stoked.
ready for the Scout.
Yeah, a Scout. Yeah, those things look so cool. And it gives me all the benefit of the EV, and also I can drive it to the trails and not have to worry about range and all that stuff if you get the right one. But
Ooh.
something like that,
It's very
I would
much-
be. I'm itching to do that as well once we're there. So
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely second the Scout one because I think my deposit's going in on that one.
I've got mine
I really
already
like
in,
the
yeah.
idea of it. Yeah. It's only $100, so I'm here for it.
Why
Yep.
not?
That's fantastic. Okay. Well, anything else we haven't hit, guys, in terms of what you want to talk about for the portals themselves or for you guys?
I don't think so. I
I
mean,
feel like we hit all the
Okay.
list of our
Yeah.
points that we like to make about portals. I think you guys,
Right.
pulled them all out for us. It was great.
Oh, that was fantastic. I just got to sit here and because Kerry, like I told Kerry about this interview and Kerry's just like, oh, I've got all the questions. So I'm like, all right, I'll just sit here and I'll press the record button and do all the rest. Yeah. So
I think
that's
the
fantastic.
only other thing maybe to add is if you want to, we do a monthly newsletter, and if you want to sign up for that, go to our website. It's under the order tab.
Okay.
And you can just put in your information, and basically we just send out, hey, here's what's happening this month. We did this trail and we went to this event and then whatever. So just a good way to stay informed of the most recent information besides, Instagram and whatever.
But you haven't put out a video in a while.
Just pulling out yesterday.
Like literally, yeah.
Literally, yeah.
I was looking, I was like, oh, look at that. You got a new one out. There it
Keep 'em
is.
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been
It's hard
We've been
finding
busy.
time to edit and do all that stuff to make it look like reasonably good,
Like-
while also making sure we're on time with portals and everything else.
Right.
On the business
Going
side.
back to the beginning of the conversation when we were saying, trying to figure out how to start this business. Video editing is one of those skills that we've been learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody tells you. You're like, yeah, I could do that, and you're like, oh, it's much bigger than I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
The modern small business startup is Instagram, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other social media stuff you got to be on top of to properly, make it. And advertise
as
the
well as
product
paying your
right,
IRS tax bill. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you guys very much. We will definitely get you all the stuff, all of your stuff linked to in the show notes. I just want to make sure that people understand it because it's a very visual, especially once you first looking at it, it's very visual to kind of do it. Once you get into the conversation, it's not a big deal. But I think for some folks, it'll be a bit of a challenge to kind of understand it. But when I saw it, I was just like, this is just the kind of thing that would work perfect for what I do. And like to Kerry's point, he's like, why would I put this on a JT? It's like, well, because those of us who are doing those overland type routes and those routes that are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, we don't necessarily build our Jeeps for the stuff we're trying to get into. We build it for the stuff we accidentally get ourselves into and then we need to get out of because we're by ourselves. And there's been more than one time. It's like, I didn't buy the bigger tires so that I could get out of or to get into trouble. I got it out so I could get myself out when I needed to. And this is one of those things. So it's kind of interesting.
That's what you're supposed to do. I got it backwards.
Well, we've already gone over the fact that you did all of your building backwards. It's well documented.
I built the JT 3 times. I'm ready to not build another one 3 times.
That's all right. I get it, man.
JT's
That's
only
why
been
you
out
gotta...
for 3 or 5 years.
Pope's a very dedicated person. Yes, he's
for sure.
Yes, I've also heard the Pope is a very dedicated person.
Wrong Pope, but that Pope doesn't have a trademark.
I did it
all
first.
right. You did it first, see? Scott, Matt, thank you guys very much for joining us. We will...
Great to meet you guys.
Yeah, it was awesome meeting you guys. I will link to all the stuff in the show notes. Check out their YouTube channel. Check out Instagram and all that kind of jazz. And if you run into these guys at an event, stop and meet with them. They're great to talk to. Hopefully you guys will get those orders out later this summer, and Kerry will be on that list someplace.
Yeah,
I think he wants to be.
Thanks for having us, guys. This was awesome.
Awesome, guys. All right. Well, if you want to learn more about Portal Pros, check out portalprosoffroad.com and check out the show notes for all the rest of the links for this show and all of the other shows that we got going out for you. So thank you guys very much for joining us at Trailhead, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
And our stories unfold.
I'm Scott, and you're listening to the Trailhead Podcast.
And I'm Matt, and we're Portal Pros, and you're listening to the Trailhead Podcast.
Matt's like, yeah, remember the business? The one that we started?
Why are you on the Trailhead Podcast?
Nice. We're nailing it here. Well, I'm Matt.
And I'm Scott.
And we're Portal Pros.
Okay, that's terrible. That's terrible.
That was great. I don't know what you're talking. It was as good as the first time we ever did it.
I don't know. I kind of like it. Yeah.
Terrible.
No,